Cargo manifests, refrigerated containers, and shipping schedules are the tools of global trade. But they are also the tools of global crime. The Balkan Cartel has embedded itself in maritime routes so deeply that the feds are now finding cocaine in fruit crates, with crew members of massive ships all being smugglers. Whether it's the ports of Philadelphia or the waters of Spain or Greece, the cartel's audacity has shown just how porous the shipping world has become.
Federal officials seized over $1 billion worth of cocaine in Philadelphia today. The U.S. Attorney's Office says more than 16.5 tons of cocaine were hidden in crates.
Value of more than $1 billion.
That more people have been arrested in connection to this billion-dollar bust.
It's crazy. I can't put my mind around it.
Balkan drug trafficking network in global shipping. When you hear drug trafficking, you might think of remote jungle labs or border smuggling. But one of the boldest plays in recent years has been through some of the largest and most complex shipping lanes in the world, especially those based in the Balkans. These aren't one-off operations, but highly organised, using crews, shipping companies, speedboats, and maritime infrastructure to move massive quantities of cocaine from South America into Europe and the US. At the centre of the network are the Balkan crime syndicates, groups from Albania, Serbia, Montenegro, and more, who coordinate cell operations. Then, they have brokers and fixer networks that stitch together production, transportation, storage, and delivery of cocaine. But this isn't all. There are also the corrupt insiders, which includes the port workers, shipping line crews, and customs officials that help the drug traffickers access different routes and hide shipments. The Balkans usually cooperate with Latin American cartels, West African transshipment points, and even with local European gangs to smooth out weak spots in law enforcement, corruption, and intelligence sharing. The Balkan networks have become masters of hiding in plain sight. They use containers that carry legal goods, maritime vessels like sailboats, tugs, or fishing boats, like the 76-metre tugboat stopped in French territorial waters, found carrying 4.8 tons of cocaine and connected to a Balkan cartel member. West Africa has become a major node. Balkan groups take advantage of ports with weak governance, porous borders, and other less guarded places to repackage and store cocaine before they go to Europe. Once the goods leave Latin America, they move to West Africa. Then through the Canary Islands and other Atlantic waypoints, they get to Europe. But how do we know the inside workings of the Balkan drug cartel and how they shut down global shipping? It all boils to the massive drug seizure in 2019, when the feds made one of the biggest maritime drug busts in US history.
2 Greek men have been charged after police seized 120 kilograms of cocaine.
3,200 pounds of cocaine was just seized at the Port of New York, Newark.
Federal agents seized more than $1 billion worth of cocaine from a cargo ship in South Philadelphia.
Massive drug seizure in Philadelphia, 2019. When the MSC Guyane slipped into Philadelphia's Packer Marine Terminal in June 2019, most people thought it was just another cargo ship doing its global rounds. Containers filled with nuts, wine, paperboard, harmless goods, and the usual commerce. But beneath that facade, lurking in the shadows of international shipping, was one of the boldest smuggling operations ever uncovered, with nearly 20 tons of cocaine hiding in plain sight. It all began when the US Customs and Border Protection and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, along with state and local partners, noticed some irregularities in a few of the containers aboard the MSC Guyane. The ship had already gone across big parts of the globe, with stops in Colombia, Peru, Panama, and the Bahamas, before docking in Philadelphia. Authorities did what they call an anomaly screening. They checked the manifests, scanned or swabbed suspicious containers, and used intelligence about shipping patterns. The evidence gathered was more than enough for them to suspect that something was off with that ship. So, the agents boarded the MSC Guyane and discovered massive shipments of cocaine from 7 shipping containers. And it wasn't just a few kilos. After further weighing and analysis, they discovered that it was nearly 20 tons of cocaine, with a street value at close to 1.3 billion US dollars. This wasn't just big, but it shattered records. It became the largest seizure in the 230-year history of US customs and border protection. And they realized, if there was 20 tons on a single ship, imagine how many ships would have passed there without being caught. But after finding the 20 tons of cocaine in the ship, they made further findings and discovered that the smuggling method was more unique than they thought. The MSC Guyana flies under the Liberian flag and is part of the fleet of the Mediterranean Shipping Company, a major global operator. The ship is over 1,000 feet long and is meant to carry assorted legal goods. But all the crew members on the ship made up a massive smuggling ring that no one expected. In fact, the smugglers had infiltrated the ship as crew members, using a shadowy network to smuggle drugs. How the MSC crew infiltrated the ships. Somewhere between Latin America and the Pacific, the Guyana was far from the prying eyes of port authorities, and it was this way that the drug cartel shut down the global shipping. It was in this space that the crew members of MSC Guyana, working with others, pulled off something audacious. They transferred bulk cocaine from smaller vessels directly onto the massive container ship and then stashing it among legally declared cargo. When authorities found the cocaine, they arrested 2 crew members immediately. The second mate, Ivan Durasovic, and another crew member, Fonofavai Tiasaga. They both admitted that they were part of the smugglers, loading the cocaine aboard from smaller vessels while the ship was at sea. Even the engineering cadet, Nenad Ilic, was also a crew member, convicted for orchestrating this scheme. Ivan Durasovic revealed that he was approached by the ship's chief officer, who offered him monies, about $50,000 to help load packages of cocaine aboard from smaller boats at sea. Ilic also participated, along with other crewers like mates, engineers and electricians, and they ended up pleading guilty. Some of the crew members claimed that they initially resisted, but later they felt coerced. Resisting wasn't a safe option for them because of the threats, pressure, and because of the dangerous cartels. But when looking at the modus operandi of their smuggling process aboard the MSC, that's where things get almost cinematic. As the Guyana made its journey, speedboats came alongside at night. These smaller vessels carried cocaine in duffel bags or bales. Then, Ivan Durasovic and others used the vessel's crane to house cargo nets full of cocaine. It wasn't just 1 or 2 bags, but it was bulk smuggling. Once the packages were on the deck, the crew members stashed the drug packets inside some shipping containers. Their process involved bending railings, pulling open container doors, and making some structural modifications like cutting into the ship's infrastructure, making it easy to hide their cargo. After hiding the cocaine inside the containers, the crew would reseal them using fake seals, some even with counterfeit and similar-looking MSC logos to disguise tampering. For communication and coordination, the smugglers and crew members built an impressive network. The crew used mobile narco phones to coordinate with the people on land like organisers and traffickers, and with other crew members about where and when to meet the speedboats. The crew members even recruited new employees and others that they met at sea, making the chain of complicity grow step by step. Although their smuggling process was risky, they found different ways to minimise the risks. They transferred the drugs under the cover of darkness, as no one would notice the speedboats approaching at night. They also found ways to hide the drugs inside legal cargo, and even modified parts of the container so no one would guess that they had been tampered with. But there was another interesting twist. The $1.3 billion worth of cocaine found on the MSC Guyana wasn't only for the US market. Some of it was bound for Europe, like France and Netherlands, via re-export. The ship docked in Philadelphia, but some containers were to be forwarded to European ports. Shortly after this massive seizure, CBP executed a warrant to seize the MSC Guyane itself, saying that the vessel was subject to possible forfeiture to the United States. It's not every day that a vessel of that size is held. This was unprecedented. The US Attorney's Office emphasized how serious this was. When a vessel brings such an outrageous amount of deadly drugs into Philadelphia waters, we'll pursue the most severe consequences to protect our district and our country. Meanwhile, shipowner MSC issued statements expressing cooperation with law enforcement, insisting that they take matters seriously and that any abuse of their services by bad actors is unacceptable. Legal outcomes followed. 8 crew members on Guyane pleaded guilty, and among them were high-ranking officers like the chief mate who were convicted for leading parts of the operation. The chief mate got one of the longest sentences. Under US law, the carrier faced fines of $1,000 per ounce of cocaine. Based on the 20 tons found, the calculation of the fines exceeded $600 million. So, the MSC could only negotiate a US $50 million bail payment. From the company side, MSC has pushed back. They deny that their organisation was infiltrated per se. Their stance is that some crew were corrupt, but the company as a whole is not complicit. They note that they have long vetting processes, including visa work, and they say they've increased security and monitoring. It was clear that the smugglers were taking advantage of the ship's route, as the goods would move through multiple jurisdictions, making it hard to detect them. But taking down one ship can't defeat the entire smuggling ring. And just in 2024, the Europeans took down another ship, although not as large as the Philly ship. 2024, arrest of Balkan shipping drugs. In mid-2024, European law enforcement scored a big win in the fight against global drug trafficking. After investigating for a couple of years, they made a couple of arrests, and massive amounts of drugs were seized, all connected to the Balkan Cartel's maritime smuggling routes. The operation was led by Spain's Guardia Civil in coordination with Europol and involved collaboration among law enforcement agencies in several countries from Brazil and Germany to Turkey and UAE. The investigation started years earlier when the Spanish authorities intercepted suspicious vessels and shipments in and near the Canary Islands. One of the first big clues came when they intercepted a Croatian-flagged yacht bound for the Canary Islands carrying about 1 ton of cocaine, allegedly transferred from a larger freighter off the coast of West Africa. After that, another boat was found with about 700 kilograms of cocaine near the Canaries. And then they found more shipments from Brazil and in places like Turkey and Dubai. Over time, they arrested about 40 people and confiscated roughly 8 tons of cocaine. This presented a newer smuggling network, although similar to the ones used by MSC. The Balkan Cartel used transit hubs in West Africa and the Canary Islands. They served as staging areas. First, shipments from South America would first arrive, sometimes by large vessels, and then smaller boats would move the drugs onward, usually concealing it, to Europe. The smaller boats would carry cocaine from freighters off the coast, and then to smaller vessels, which then attempted to bring them towards the Canaries. Their smuggling network was big and well-resourced, even crossing continents, including strict countries like Turkey and Dubai. With this process, West Africa and the Canary Islands are major points in global drug trafficking. The operation to catch these Balkan smugglers crossed continents, with South America being the origins, West Africa for the transits, and Europe as the destination. Meanwhile, the command of the operation was in Dubai and Turkey. It just shows how global the Balkan smuggling ring has become. Over the years, global governments have made different arrests, as the drug cartel continues to shut down global shipping. Other recent arrests. Just in August 2025, authorities arrested a Serbian national that's a part of the Balkan cartel, who had up to 4,841 kilograms of cocaine aboard the tugboat Galexia in French territorial waters in Martinique. 11 people were on board, mostly Croatian and Montenegrin. The owner of the boat, called VDJ, is actually the beneficial owner of a maritime consulting company that recruits seafarers. But this was just a cover, as he was actually a member of the cartel and used his boat to transport cocaine. The case was shocking because no one expected that there would be such a large volume of cocaine in the tugboat, and there were a lot of crew nationals from Balkan countries, showing how far the criminal network has gone. Just a few months before that, Frontex and partner agencies led Operation White Sea, which targeted the smuggling routes through the Atlantic, the English Channel and the North Sea. They found 3.3 tons of cocaine across 119 ships. In fact, there were 13 arrests, which included crew members, as seen with the Philadelphia case in 2019. One of the major events was a tanker from Brazil docked in Zeebrugge, where 647 kilograms of cocaine were hidden and many crew members were arrested. The shipping vessel method and using crew members were very similar to the Balkan networks. A month after that, they found even more cocaine on the sea, as the drug cartel shut down the global shipping. In Operations Armageddon and Dika, INADA, the Croatian law enforcement arrested 45 individuals across 7 counties. They found over 8 tons of illicit drugs, without about 6.7 tons of that being cocaine. The case involved large-scale coordination, including seizures in transit or shipment, use of international routes, and port or logistical hubs. And in 2024, governments around the world tracked down Balkan cartels as they smuggled drugs. In November 2024, there was another Balkan region case involving a network smuggling cocaine from South America into the EU using maritime routes. One of the shocking aspects was when they found over 0.5 tons of cocaine found in the port of Ploce in southern Croatia, hidden in a modified cargo container floor. Hamburg's port is also a flashpoint. In September, they found over 2 tons of cocaine hidden in a container of bananas at the port of Hamburg. All these cases show a similar trend, as the Balkan cartel is taking advantage of the global shipping infrastructure and international routes. All of these are nodes that the Balkan networks usually exploit. Global shipping infrastructure. In fact, global shipping has become the backbone of the world economy. Around 80 to 90% of global trade by volume moves by sea, carrying everything from raw materials and energy resources to finished electronics and consumer goods. Because shipping can handle massive weight and bulk much cheaper than air or land, it's an economic engine that keeps countries connected, supply chains going, and markets supplied. And it's this system that the drug cartels are taking advantage of this system to send their cocaine around the world. With the vast scale of maritime trade, it also means that the ports, ships, freight routes, custom authorities, and shipping lines form a very complex and fragile system that the drug cartels take advantage of to shut down the global shipping. There's a handful of major ports that handle a massive share of world trade. That's where the containers are loaded, unloaded, inspected, stored, and forwarded. With millions of tons of goods being transported every day, it's easy for the cartels to hit the vulnerable points. They have their people infiltrating different ships and ports, and so they can easily hide different packages of cocaine while loading and unloading ships. Also, although there are customs and security inspections at every port and route, which are sensitive and use different methods like X-rays and opening containers for inspection, it can be lax sometimes. If the containers containing drugs are at the back of a ship or hidden in hollowed-out fruits, it's hard to catch them. What's more, many ports are modernizing, expanding, and introducing digital systems to automate paperwork and speed up inspections. This has added a lot of vulnerabilities in the global shipping network. This is especially in developing countries because their ports lag behind in technology, staffing, and security. Because so much trade is moving by sea, criminal networks like traffickers and smugglers attempt to exploit the system. Cargo containers, ships with many ports of call, and large volumes give opportunities to hide contraband. Inspecting every container thoroughly is impossible. This means customs and security agencies must use risk profiling, intelligence, random checks. But that also means that criminals may find the weak links, like ports or routes with less oversight. In fact, some of these ports have become a center for cocaine trafficking and distribution as the drug cartel shuts down the global shipping. Ports for cocaine trafficking ports have become huge gateways for illegal goods. Antwerp and Rotterdam in Northern Europe are among the top transit hubs for large cocaine shipments. Why? Because of their massive scale of trade, connections to Latin America, vast storage, many refrigerated containers, and transportation links. Before the drugs are transported into the ships for global trafficking, they are hidden in ports by insiders. In August 2025, Dutch customs intercepted 88 kilograms of cocaine in 2 refrigerated containers meant to go to Antwerp. The drugs were actually hidden behind the inspection hatches of those containers. One container was carrying meat from Uruguay and another had meat from Argentina. In fact, checking the inspection hatches of containers has become normal in recent years. Earlier, in 2025, the customs officials revealed that they found about 55 kilograms of cocaine hidden inside the engine compartment of a refrigerated container arriving from the Dominican Republic. The container was arriving at the port of Antwerp, and officers discovered that the drugs stashed where routine checks might not be thorough. Back in 2024, nearly 2 tons, 1.963 tons, of cocaine was seized in Antwerp. The drugs were concealed in containers that were selected for customs inspection. 2 were hidden in a load of sugar. Also, on another key, nearly a ton was discovered in containers being moved by port or terminal workers trying to collect them. Some of those hiding the cocaine tried to escape from the container during inspection. Still in Antwerp in the same year, authorities found 4.78 tons of cocaine in shipping containers at Antwerp. The case targeted a Balkan cartel network allegedly importing from South America, Central America, and Canada. This group had been facilitating exit of suspicious containers out of Antwerp, providing logistical support. The seizure involved searches in both Belgium and the Netherlands, and authorities also confiscated luxury assets, vehicles, weapons, and cash. But the smugglers are getting smarter with hiding and concealing drug parcels. One inspection in Antwerp revealed that a container, which was meant to have cocoa beans, actually contained about 1,000 kilograms of cocaine. The smugglers hollowed out the fruit to hide the cocaine packages. This wasn't the only time drugs were smuggled through Antwerp. Another time, customs uncovered 308 kilograms of cocaine hidden among cocoa beans from Haiti. The narcotics were packed inside sports bags and placed among the legitimate cargo. Another shipment had 62 kilograms of cocaine hidden inside a shipment of bananas arriving at Antwerp from Costa Rica. The concealment was among the bananas as a classic tactic. This shows how traffickers exploit innocuous goods like chocolates, fruits, bananas, coffee, and other perishables as a cover. It's easy to hide cocaine in a busy port like Antwerp. In fact, only about 1.5% of containers entering Antwerp are scanned. The sheer volume makes it impossible to carry out full inspection, and so traffickers take advantage of this to smuggle large volumes of cocaine, bypassing detection. One of those cases involved a switch method in Antwerp. South American containers with illicit contents were switched into European containers that were thought to be less risky. They also have a cocaine extractor working inside the port, coordinating extractions of cocaine from containers and then moving them through trucks and warehouses. In one such case, at least 3.8 tons of cocaine were extracted using these operations from 2019 to 2020. Places like Antwerp, Rotterdam, and other busy ports are prime targets for smugglers and traffickers for different reasons. They have huge numbers of containers and many kinds of goods, so traffickers usually hide contraband in cooling compartments, engine spaces, and among other ordinary items. When goods arrive at Antwerp or Rotterdam, they are usually sent out almost immediately with little inspection, on their way to other EU countries. So once the contraband enters these ports, distribution networks are already in place. In some cases, port staff, trucking companies, or people in shipping offices being complicit, helping arrange container switching, bypass inspections, or moving containers illicitly. Ever since the feds bust the MSC ship in Philadelphia 2019, global governments have been introducing new measures to stop the drug cartel from shutting down global shipping. Governments introduced new measures. In January 2024, the European Commission, together with member states like Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, France and Spain, launched the European Ports Alliance. It aims to unite customs, port authorities, shipping companies, terminal operators, law enforcement, and private stakeholders to strengthen the resilience of ports to infiltration by criminal networks. The key goals of the alliance is to include better scanning and inspection equipment worth €200+ million in funding, improved cooperation, sharing intelligence and best practices, and tougher controls on access to port facilities. The EU also started a roadmap to fight organised crime and drugs, and their main focus is to modernise customs operations in ports. This includes deploying more high-tech scanning equipment for containers, improving risk assessment, increasing container inspections, and enhancing customs agility across borders. For instance, in Rotterdam, which has seen a lot of cocaine smuggling, the customers have finally increased container scanning by about 40% compared to previous years. This kind of measure will go a long way in a port like Antwerp. Moreover, innovative tools like drones, underwater inspection equipment, and smart cameras are being used more often to detect illicit concealment or smuggling attempts. Belgium too has moved to extend its Maritime Safety Act to include inland waterways, tighten controls on access by personnel like staff screening, fingerprint and biometric access and stricter surveillance, and enforce physical security standards like fencing, cameras and gate control. In places like Latin America, South America and West Africa that are being used are drug source countries and transit hubs. Liaison officers are being posted in the customs. But there are many challenges that come with tracking down these drug cartels, as they have infiltrated the entire supply chain, ships and ports. Challenges to tracking down drug cartels. The main problem is the huge volumes and low inspection rates. The sheer scale of global shipping is overwhelming. Millions of containers move through ports every year. Even major ports like Rotterdam or Antwerp only inspect a small fraction of all containers. This gives traffickers a lot of room to hide illicit cargo. Traffickers have increasingly hidden cocaine in container structures themselves, like the walls, floors, ceilings, refrigeration units called reefers, making detection much harder. And let's not forget that the smugglers have become smarter. They use hidden compartments in containers, modify insulation, cooling systems, or even engine spaces. To pull this off, they often need help from people inside the shipping system, like port workers, container yard staff, stevedores, or even maintenance contractors who can access or tamper with containers. They also use small vessels like go-fast boats, fishing boats, and semi-submersibles, which are hard to detect. Many don't use automatic identification systems, AIS, or have them disabled. Remote stretches of ocean give cartels areas to transfer shipments under cover. Law enforcement in many countries lack enough ships, patrol aircraft, or satellite coverage to monitor large maritime zones efficiently. Smugglers usually take advantage of the ports and agencies in developing countries which are underfunded. They lack advanced scanning machines, modern detection technology, human capacity, and sometimes even basic infrastructure. That limits how thoroughly and frequently they can inspect containers or screen cargo. And as seen in the Philly 2019 case, there's a lot of corruption and complicity. When port workers, officials, or shipping company staff are bribed or coerced, traffickers can exploit those weak points. Insider help can mean containers are switched, fake seals are used, or that suspicious cargo is moved through without triggering risk profiling. That's how they use the drop-off method. The crew aboard the large ship would throw cocaine packages overboard in open sea, and then small vessels would collect them, leading to inside cooperation on the ship. The Balkan drug cartel has shut down the global shipping network, infiltrating all the aspects from the ports and containers to the ships and crew members. Do you think this network will ever be dismantled? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.